let's play some of the clips. This is some of the clips from. If you want to watch the whole thing, it's on YouTube somewhere. But anyway, so I'm not going to. I'm going to comment on it afterwards. The reason why this is important to the James Y. Yasir Qadhi controversy is this: Yasir Qadhi was at the talk. Yasir Qadhi thinks very highly of Linda Sarsour. And I'm going to read some of his comments about Linda Sarsour. They've been pictured together on Instagram on Linda Sarsour's account. Also, Yasir Qadhi is publicly lauded this woman. Here's what she says.
Sisters and brothers, it's been 16, almost 17 years since the horrific attacks of 9/11. And we still, as a community, find ourselves unprepared in so many moments. Why, sisters and brothers? Why are we so unprepared? Why are we so afraid of this administration and the potential chaos that they will ensue on our community? And we already saw their potential when they come out every few weeks. Muslim ban 1, Muslim ban 2, Muslim ban 3. They are relentless, they are persistent and consistent, and want to see how much we as a community can endure, and want to see who our friends are and how hard we're going to fight back against this administration. And I hope...
It goes on to the next clip now in a second, and you see this a lot. She's very aggressive. She's a very extremely aggressive version, for the United States at least. But I mean, what do you say to that? The Muslim ban, well, it's not even a Muslim ban, it was a ban from immigration, a temporary ban for 3 months, by the way, for 7 nations that were primarily Muslim, that were terrorist hotspots. If you want to say, and here's the thing, right? If the place where there are terrorist hotspots happens to block primarily Muslim nations from entering the United States, maybe the problem isn't the United States. Maybe it's Islam. Just maybe.
That we, when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad.
Just before I get into the jihad comments, that, you know, the oppression from... Look, in the Quran, oppression is anybody who gets in their way. You stand in the way of the complete dominance of Islam, you're oppressing them, you're oppressing... That's the impression I get when I read through the Quran. Do not trust them. Do not take the Jews and the Christians for friends. They are friends of each other, the Quran says. So there's a perpetual... In the Quran, there's a distrust of outsiders. They're seeing them as filthy. Now, I know people try to normalize and say, oh, well, the Bible says, for all of sin to fall short of the glory of God, we're all a filthy thing, all these kind of things. Our greatest deeds are with filthy rags. That's completely different. And the Bible says that all have sinned. Every single one of us are wretched. Every single one of us. But the Quran is different. The Quran says that Muslims are the greatest of creatures, and all others are pigs and dogs. Now, does every Muslim believe this? No. Okay, I'm just going to go back a little bit to her. These are the comments that caused much of this controversy recently relating to Linda Sarsour.
When we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and rulers, not only abroad in the Middle East or in the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House. How much we as a community can...
Just need to play it one more time, because sometimes when you hear this once, it's hard to digest it. Let's listen again.
And how hard we're going to fight back against this administration. And I hope that we, when we stand up to those who oppress our communities, that Allah accepts from us that as a form of jihad, that we are struggling against tyrants and...
So, who is that? Those are those people who stand in the way of the complete domination of Islam. She talks about in her speech being perpetually outraged. She talks, just get some other quotations, about Muslims The priority is not to assimilate, and they don't. They create nations within a nation, and they create Sharia courts in other countries. They do not want to follow the laws of the land they go into. This is documented time and time again in different countries.
Rulers, not only abroad in the Middle East or in the other side of the world, but here in these United States of America, where you have fascists and white supremacists and Islamophobes reigning in the White House.
And just to translate that word Islamophobe means anyone that stands in the way of Islam. And I hate the word, phobia, an irrational fear of a religion that wants you dead. I don't think that's incredibly irrational. Now, does every Muslim want you dead? No, of course not. I don't believe that. But what does the Quran teach? It's like, how many professing Christians in the world actually believe the Bible? Not a whole lot. So, just because they're raised in Muslim homes and all this kind of stuff. But if, scary thing is, you want to follow the example of Muhammad, a disgusting pedophile. This must be brought up. This man married a 6-year-old Aisha, consummated marriage at 9. Islam allows the taking of sex slaves. And this has been defended by academics in the Middle East, by the way. This is not some fringe view. What ISIS is doing is straight out of the Quran and the Hadith. They are following the example of the Prophet Muhammad. Now, maybe you could argue Linda Sarsour has a different understanding of what jihad means. I'm sure she's not that stupid. You have no clue, especially she's like, I think she's like Palestinian as well, that she has no clue. At best, it's confusing and irresponsible. At worst, it's criminal. It's inciting violence. Basically calling for jihad against the President of the United States. Oh, it's just speaking a word in opposition. That's what she said. Yes, but that word means something in the Islamic context and serving Allah. When the Quran says, those who are slain and are slain.
We have to stay outraged. Do not criticize me when I say that we as a Muslim community in these United States of America have to be perpetually outraged every single day. When I wake up in the morning and I remember who's sitting in the White House, I am...
And this is why they get on so well with the left. They're perpetually outraged about everything. Because they believe they're the best of creatures and they deserve the best. Does the Quran not teach this? That Muslims are the best of creatures? I've gone through this in other programs. If people want references, and they can email me, megidofilms@gmail.com. But people have gone through this. I also noticed that the Yasir Qadhi, they didn't pan the audience or anything like that, but it seems like a large amount of the people who were there at the Yasir Qadhi James White dialogue, interfaith dialogue, had not read the Quran, or at least just had read parts of it. So, read it. Read it. So let's go on to, let's finish off these clips from Linda Sarsour's talk at the ISNA, which is Hamas, is linked to Hamas.
Outrage. This is not normal, sisters and brothers. Those people sitting in the most powerful seats in this country is not normal. So do not ever be those citizens that normalize this administration, because when the day comes that something horrific happens to us or to another community, you will be responsible for normalizing this administration.
How about normalizing the barbarous Islamic killings across the world? You know, they're all for, and some things, bad things do happen to Muslims at times. Of course they do. But compared with the terror attacks around the world, and these have been compiled by the religionofpeace.com, and you can just go to terror attacks, and then a little drop down screen pops up and it says in the name of Allah. And if you see the amount of attacks since July began, just to give you an idea, in June of 2017, there's been 164 attacks, 1,176 killed, 1,382 injured, 34 suicide blasts in 30 countries in the name of Allah. Since 9/11, 31,148 attacks, Islamic attacks, carried out in the name of Allah. This is not just a handful. And you can be sure if the quote-unquote Islamophobe attacks happen, be all over the media. They don't cover in Kenya today. 9 injured. 9 villagers were beheaded like chickens by Islamic extremists. This is in Kenya. Egypt, 23 killed, 33 injured. Yesterday. In Syria on the 6th, which is 2 days ago, in Hama in Syria, 3 were killed, 9 injured by a suicide bomber. In Saudi Arabia, 1 was killed and 6 were injured by a Shiite extremist kills a local cop with an explosive device. On and on and on. Every day around the world, there are terror attacks in the name of Allah. But they get to be outraged when a country dares say, you know those countries where a lot of people are blowing themselves up? Maybe it's a good idea to not let those people in for a while and let's just see, screen a little bit. No, you're oppressing us. No, you're looking for privileged status.
Our number one and top priority is to protect and defend our communities. It is not to assimilate and to please any other people in a...
Not to assimilate. No. And they haven't been doing that anywhere. Creating nation within a nation and setting up Sharia courts.
Authority, our obligation is to our young people, is to our women, and make sure our women are protected in our community. And
This is disgusting. Considering that Sweden has become the rape capital of the West, for the Muslim community anywhere to take the moral high ground is just patently disgusting. Do some research in Sweden. What has happened to Sweden with mass immigration?
Top priority, even higher than all those priorities, is to please Allah and only Allah.
Let's look at a quotation here from the Shafi Legal Manual. This is the School of the Islamic Jurisprudence. Umdat al-Salik, which is Reliance of the Traveler. And Robert Spencer says on this, which has been certified by Al-Azhar, the foremost authority in Sunni Islam, is conforming to the, quote, practice and faith of the Orthodox Sunni community, unquote. Denotes one paragraph to jihad as spiritual struggle, and that's what everybody's going to try and say. Well, people have been trying to say on the left. Then it spends, this is Robert Spencer commenting here, then it spends 7 pages on jihad as warfare. It makes it quite clear that jihad is warfare against non-Muslims. This is what the Reliance of the Traveler states. Jihad means to war against non-Muslims and is etymologically derived from the word mujahada, signifying welfare to establish the religion. Warfare to establish religion. Maybe a bit of a Freudian slip there because Sarsour is part of the DNC, but I digress. And it is the lesser jihad. So, the violent one is the lesser jihad, but it's still there. As for the greater jihad, it says it is spiritual warfare against the lower self nafs, which is why the Prophet, Allah bless him and give him peace, said as he's returning from jihad, quote, we have returned from the lesser jihad to the greater jihad. The spiritual basis for jihad prior to scholarly consensus is such Quranic verses as fighting is prescribed for you, Surah 216. Slay them wherever you find them, 489. Fight the idolaters utterly. Surah 9:36. And such hadith as one related by Bukhari, a Muslim, that the Prophet Allah said. The Prophet said, anyways, this is talking about Muhammad. Bukhari and Muslim are the two collections of hadith. We've said this before, most respected in the Islamic world and generally accepted by all, except for probably Qur'an only Muslims, and they're not really that prevalent, really. It says here, I have been commanded to fight until they testify that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and perform the prayer and pay zakat. If they say they have saved their blood possessions from me, except for the rights of Islam over them, and their final reckoning is with Allah. An hadith reported by Muslim. This is from Sahih Muslim. To go forth in the morning or evening to fight in the path of Allah is better than the whole world and everything in it. So it's quite clear. Okay, yeah, included in jihad is the spiritual struggle. But also, there is also reported anywhere you care to look that is any kind of bearing upon the Islamic world, you always have a warfare. Jihad. There's a lesser jihad and a greater jihad. So they want to point out that part, and it's a half-truth, and half-truths are dangerous. Now, so that's Linda Sarsour. Let's look at some of her connections now to Yasir Qadhi. Yasir Qadhi was at the same conference with Linda Sarsour. Brandon House has written an article. I haven't had a chance to go through his article, but he's posted a lot of the links and information at worldviewweekend.com. And so Yasir Qadhi was there. Robert Spencer confirmed that. And also Brandon, if you go to his Facebook page and other pages, if you go to worldviewweekend.com, he's got an article on there where they have, there's a picture that is on the Twitter account, Empower Change. So a picture with Yasir Qadhi with Linda Sarsour. You might just say, oh, that's a picture. That's from the 30th of June, 2017, that weekend. Little thing that says hashtag no Muslim ban ever. And are we quote bona fide Muslim family? So enough. Okay, so anyway. So who is Linda Sarsour? And a lot of this information, thanks to Brandon House, who's done a lot of research. Also, if you want more information, it was a really good program that he did with Robert Spencer. I don't get to listen to as much Christian radio anymore, so I don't know what else has been done and things like that. Often, when I'm working, I travel 2 hours to and 2 hours back. So most of my research, I just either print it off and grab. The internet is terrible when I'm traveling, so often I don't get to follow up on a lot of this stuff as much as I would like. But anyway, he did a great program, was it about a week ago, with Robert Spencer. Robert Spencer is probably the best scholar in this area that I know of, at least. Now, he's not a Christian. I think he's a Maronite Catholic or something like that. So pray for the man's soul. But he's the best scholar in this area that I have found. I'm very cautious to recommend people, and it's I remember I bought his book he wrote a book on Muhammad, which is the first one I read. I think it's called The Truth About Muhammad. Anyway, it's a very good book, and he's also got a book on ISIS, well documented. He's a very balanced man. He tries to document absolutely everything, and that he does. And this he's vilified and by Yasir Qadhi as well. But Linda Sarsour, let's look into who she is. She's a resident of Brooklyn. Is in an Arab American. She's an Arab American who identifies herself as a Palestinian Muslim American. Executive Director of Arab American Association of New York. Co-founder of the Muslim Democrat Club of New York. Member of the Justice League NYC. What else is... So, according to the New York Times, Sarsour is deeply involved in Black Lives Matter movement. Very, the one that calls for dead cops. There's videos of that, by the way. What do we want? Dead cops. What do we want now? There's lots of violence comes from the Black Lives Matter movement. Anyway, so not good connections there. And what does Yasir Qadhi? We have to know who this guy James White is putting forward. This guy has been put forward by James White. Whatever way you want to slice it, whatever way you fall on either side, defending him or not defending him, you have to admit that James White is saying, okay, you want to know about Islam? Listen to this guy. Can we at least admit that? And this guy is honest and everything else. Okay, what does... I get the quotation in front of me. Oh yeah, here we go. What did Yasir Qadhi in social media, I think this is on Facebook? Yeah. Anyway, he said, and this goes back to January 23rd of this year. And he said this. This is Yasir Qadhi said this anyway. Linda Sarsour is an activist of the highest caliber. She's eloquent, brave, and fearless. I am proud to call her an ally and friend. Well, the disgusting and violent attacks by the far-right Islamophobes, that would be me, against her only indicate not just me, Robert Spencer and other people like that who've done excellent work in the media looking at this. But anyway, the disgusting and violent attacks by the far-right Islamophobes against her only indicate that the fear that Allah has blessed her to strike... I have to read this properly. The disgusting and violent attacks of the far-right Islamophobes against her only indicate the fear that Allah has blessed her to strike in the hearts of such pitiful haters. Yeah, because, the hadith, I've been commanded to strike terror to the hearts of the unbelievers, or words to that effect. Anyway, I think there's a hadith like that. So he vehemently supports, at least a couple of months ago, supported Linda Sarsour. Linda Sarsour now calls for, look, whatever one you want to slice it, calls for jihad against the President of the United States. Maybe the best thing you could say about her, she is ignorant and she's being foolish, and what she's saying is, at the very minimum, dangerous, unintentionally so. That's the minimum you can say. Can't get inside her head. But there's a clear meaning in the Islamic world what this word, and these people seem to know each other for quite a while. This is on Linda Sarsour's Instagram account, dated April 10th, 2016. There's a picture of her and 3 Muslim men. You might recognize one of the guys. One is Imam Omar Suleiman, Sheikh Yasir Qadhi, and Faris Barakat. She said, you should all be proud of these brothers. So they seem very close. And again, there's that picture from Empower Change on their Twitter account. So it says, hey, DHS government at Department of Homeland Security, State Department, check out our bona fide Muslim family. No Muslim ban ever. ISNA 54. So again, there's will Yasir Qadhi condemn the comments made by Linda Sarsour? Yasir Qadhi, who is, I'm quoting James White here, the mentor of James White in these areas. Time will tell.